Well, welcome to our first systematic theology class of 2023. Amazing. We're already halfway into January. Hard to believe. I guess this year is going to go fast too. But again, the good news is that means Jesus is coming back quicker, and or we die and go to be with Him quicker. Either way, it's to live as Christ, to die as gain. So that's the good news about being a believer. So we're on chapter 22, man as male and female. I never thought this would be such a relevant topic as it is today. To think that there's any kind of debate on this is mind-boggling to me. But it just shows how far we've gotten away from the Bible. And even churches, even Christians. It's amazing how many people think this is a confusing issue, and yet the Bible is very clear on this issue. So anyway, very relevant, and I think like anything, when you do things God's way, it works. And if you don't do things God's way, it doesn't work. And it leads to chaos and confusion and all kinds of bizarre stuff, and that's where we see our culture right now. So this is a very relevant topic. So let's go and open our time in prayer. Father, I just want to thank you for each person here getting here safely. I pray if anybody's still on their way that they would go slow and they would take it easy and get here safe. Thank you for the rain. We love seeing the green hills, and we love the rain. We pray that our state would do a better job of being able to make use of the rain and instead of waste the money. And so, Lord, we just pray for good leadership, that you would provide that. Lord, thank you for this subject, male and female relationships. And I just pray that you would give us wisdom as we grapple with this. We all know people who are confused about what it means to be a male, what it means to be a female, transgenderism, and same-sex attraction. All these things are happening around us, and we need your wisdom and your perspective and truth, to know what truth is, and to be able to deal with this with those who disagree in a loving and gentle way. And so thanks for the relevance of all of the scriptures. It seems like every week, whatever we're looking into your scriptures with is relevant, which is amazing that your scriptures have been around for close to 5,000, 4,000 years, and yet it's just as relevant, if not more relevant today. And so thank you that we have a place that we can go to and rest secure that what's there is true and makes a difference for our salvation. It makes a difference for our marriages, our relationships, how we work, how we live. And so thank you for Marin Bible Church being a place that we can come and study truth and community to help each other be more like Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the workbook. And hey, good news, you've already read over 500 pages in this book, almost 600 pages. So for many of you, this will be the longest book you read. I can't imagine you've read too many books that are longer than 1,500 pages. But, you should be, don't have too much pride, because pride goes before a fall. But, you should be at least a little, happy that you're,
The Lord's return.
That's right. That's right. It would be great. Wouldn't that be great if it came before we get done with that'd be awesome. And then we could get the real teacher. We get the one who knows it all right there. Okay, so I think the chapter, what page does that start on?
580.
580. Yeah, 580. So have both those open. All right, let's go ahead and do the chapter review on page 97. And I'll just read the opening prayer. These are good. Lord, thank you for your design of humanity as male and female. Satan hates the way you glorify yourself through humanity as male and female. And there is so much confusion about this in our day. Show me the beauty of gender distinctions as well as the equality of dignity and worth they share. Help me to understand and love what it means to be the gender you created me to be. Amen. All right, number one. What are the three ways the creation as male and female shows God's image? So we find that right away on page 580. So anybody want to say those three?
Harmonious interpersonal relationships. Equality in personhood and importance. And difference in role and authority.
Okay, good. Any comments or questions on that? He went on a few pages to discuss this, and there's more questions in relationship to this, but any thoughts on that? And especially just the day we're in, because these things have been turned upside down, you know, so. And I like what he said in the prayer, you know, Satan hates the way that God has designed things.
Yeah.
And I really think the only thing that makes sense to me of how any of this stuff that's going on can get any traction at all is because Satan's behind it. You know, he's very powerful, he's very deceptive. But for any of this to get the traction it's getting, I think you got to have a very powerful engine to drive it. And I really do believe Satan is behind it.
Yeah, I mean, if Satan's going to go after God, he's going to go right to the fundamental.
Yeah.
Just our who we are as His created.
Yeah.
His creation, you know, that, and our creation. When God created us, He specifically made us in His image.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that explains a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the reasons I picked Genesis, you know, you could preach through any book and of the Bible and it's going to be relevant, and we need to study all of it, but one of the reasons I especially chose Genesis is I think what you just said, all the fundamental, foundational things, you know, what it means to be a man, what it means to be made in the image of God. Are we made in the image of God? Is there a God? I mean, just the basic stuff is all... the majority of people growing up now don't believe the stuff we believe.
Or know about it.
Yeah, they don't know, they're ignorant of it, they don't know about it, and they're hostile to it. They're not just, you know, if we say anything other than what they believe, then they're hostile to it. So it's a challenging time to just believe the basics of Christianity, you know, the basics of the Bible.
More important to really know what the basics are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Briefly, this difference here between importance and authority is pretty confusing.
Okay.
In a way, to a lot of people. Equality in importance and difference in authority.
Yeah.
Because in the world, those things kind of go hand in hand. You know, if you think about the employee-employer relationship, you know, the guy who manages 50 people is more important to the company than one of those 50 people. And he also has more authority than those 50 people. So those things are typically twinned throughout our world, and here they're different.
Yeah.
And I think where it stands out, that's a really good example, and I think where it really stands out even more to me, in my mind's eye, is if I was in the military and you're in a you're in a battle situation. I mean, can you imagine the chaos that would ensue if you're being, and nobody's in authority, nobody's in command? I mean, you know, I bet you, it'll be interesting because Jesus will know the answer to this. But one question, if I even care at that point, but I think it'd be interesting to ask him how many lives have been saved because of biblical leadership. You know, and he'll know. You know, he'll know the exact answer. But I bet you it's millions. You know, I bet you it's millions throughout history. And again, when you just do God things the way it works, and if you don't do it His way, it's horrible. It's just, it leads to death, it leads to chaos, and so forth. And it's just, I think this is a powerful way to even share the gospel, really. Because again, it's a hard way, living in confusion is a hard way to live. You know, it really is. If you don't know what's up and what's down, you know, it's really a challenging way to live. So it's a great day to be it's always a good day to be a Christian, but to have objective truth to drive you is a wonderful thing. Okay, good. Number 2, where does interpersonal unity come to its fullest expression in this age? And then he said to explain this unity. All right. Is that silence because you don't know or because you're waiting for someone else to share it?
What's in marriage?
Okay, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, why?
Is it in
Or
the
explain
age of marriage?
what?
Is it in the age of marriage? Come to its fullest expression in the age of marriage where husband and wife become since two persons in one?
Yeah.
Yeah, a unity as two become one physically and spiritually.
And distinctions, male and female, not
Right.
just one man. You know, it's very
Yeah.
clear.
On page 581, if you look at the second to the last paragraph, so right at the bottom of the second to the last paragraph where there's numbers 1 and 2 there, he says the fact that God is 3 in 1 while Adam and Eve were only 2 in 1 may be a reminder that God's own excellence is far greater than ours, that he possesses far greater plurality and far greater unity than we ourselves as creatures can possess. And then secondly, though the unity is not exactly the same, the unity in a family among husband, wife, and children does also reflect to some degree the interpersonal unity yet diversity of persons among the members of the Trinity. And again, if you're married and you don't have kids, I even see that as sort of a model of the Trinity too, because you want God to be at the center of your marriage. So it's not just a man and a woman, it's also how is God at the center of that? And again, that's always a challenge for those of you who are married to non-believers, you know. But at the same time, you yourself can reflect the Trinity in your marriage, even if you're married to a non-believer. So it's a high calling. It's not easy, but it's something that for all of us, we need to work on it. And really, the only way to know that is know what is God like? You know, what's his character? What are the roles in the Trinity? And then how do we reflect that in the sphere of influence that he's placed us? Okay, number 3, is marriage the only way that interpersonal relationships reflect the nature of the Trinity? And so obviously the answer is no, because he says give other examples. So what were some other examples of that?
It's in the unity of believers in fellowship.
Okay.
Yeah.
So practically, what's that mean? What does that look like? What do you guys think?
Life groups kind of reflect that.
Okay.
The church reflects that.
Yeah, we try to be really, we're complementarian, but really the Bible, the only prohibition for women in the church is they can't be pastors. Because that's an authoritative role, a spiritual authoritative role. And also they can't preach, because when you preach, that's also an authoritative role. But really, women can do anything else. So we've had people from a complementarian background that get upset, like that women pray in the service. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, there's nothing unbiblical about that. And even you have Deborah prophesying, for instance, in the Bible. So really a woman can do anything. And again, it's not that a woman doesn't have the ability to preach or isn't smart enough to preach. Or probably, there's a lot of women I bet that could preach better than me, okay? But it's like, what's God's design? And what does God want us to do and be? So the nice thing is, I really think that any gift a woman has can actually be utilized, because we have women that preach to women, for instance, or teach women. And Bible Study Fellowship is a good example of that, where some of you have been involved in Bible Study Fellowship. We have several women here that have been in Bible Study Fellowship or are in Bible Study Fellowship. And so it's nice to have a woman, and the thing about that is a woman can use examples and illustrations that I'm not going to use. Like, I'm not going to talk about going and getting my hair done. There's no hair to get done. Okay? But a woman can relate to that, and there could be some biblical illustration that might connect more with a woman. So that's why we have women's discipleship, where women meet with women, and men's discipleship, where men. But in the overall church structure, we want to model the Trinity. So whether it's a men's group, our elders are composed of men, but our deacons are composed of men and women. But if the chairman and the vice chairman of the deacon board are men, because they have an authoritative role over that group. And so all we're doing is we're saying, hey, we're equal, but we have different functions. And the Trinity, and the good news is the Trinity models that. So, and when it's modeled well, it's a beautiful thing. Again, you can't say the Trinity is bad because there's submission in the Trinity. That submission's a bad thing, because everybody in our culture thinks that, that's a bad thing. That's a horrible thing for anybody to submit to anybody. Well, no, it's not. It actually leads to order. And if you do it right, you enjoy it because you know what you're supposed to do. And you know who leads. Somebody's got to lead. If not, it's chaos. So I just think it all works out. But as he talked about in the chapter, I think it was good that he brought out that we both, men and women, sin in the abuse of our roles. It's not the role itself that's wrong, it's the abuse of the role. And I thought that was a good point that he brought out. And we have to work hard to model that because, again, we all have sin natures that we contend with. And whether it's in a marriage or in leadership or whatever, we've all seen the abuse of that. And some of us have been on the receiving end of the abuse, and some of us have been the abusers as well. So we just really have to watch for that. Like all sin, we all have blind spots and struggle. And that's one of the nice things about growing in community like this is somebody shares something and it's like, oh yeah, I could relate to that. I struggle with that too. And please pray for me, help me out here. So, yeah.
I think maybe some of the confusion we have as far as importance and value,
Mm-hmm.
I think we confuse some of the terms. Because we could be important for certain, like you said, roles,
Yeah.
or certain functions. That's important. That's really important. And
Yeah.
in certain situations, that's the case. But still, everyone is valuable,
Right.
and worthwhile to God.
Right.
Yes.
So each
Absolutely.
of us, I can't,
Yeah.
we all have equal value in God's
Yeah.
eyes. But
Absolutely, yeah.
importance in maybe how certain things function, or
Yeah.
maybe certain teaching situations, or leadership situations, or service situations, that could go, based on what they're gifted with by God,
Yeah.
or their role, but
Yeah.
still be all valuable and worthwhile to God.
Right. Yes. Good point. And I think he brings that out really well in this chapter too. But I think that's an extremely important point. I just think that because we're, again, believe it or not, our church is probably less than 20% of churches in America that's complementarian. Most churches are egalitarian. They make no distinction between men and women. So when the church does that, you're in big trouble. The culture did that a long time ago. But the church has done that as well, and it's caused a lot of division, conflict, chaos. But I just want you to know, because we're in the minority, that we have to be very careful to be humble in that position. And so I think that whole idea of value is really important, that we really value women. We really value men and our distinct roles. And it's important that we communicate that, we talk about that, we appreciate that, we encourage that. But we want to be biblical. We don't want to sacrifice the baby with the bathwater, right? We want to make sure that we're biblical and honoring the Lord in our callings. Okay, number 4. Well, was there anything else? He talked about believers in fellowship, but was there anything else that came to mind for any of you? Because he wasn't exhaustive on this, but anything else that came to mind that anybody wanted to share? Okay, I would say that, like for instance, I'll just give an example of something that we do as a church. When we look, like when the church was looking for me, or when we were looking for Jim, or now we're looking for a youth pastor, when we finally have somebody in place that's gone through sort of the hardcore interviews, for instance with me, because I'm pretty hardcore in interviews, especially theologically and philosophically, so I want to make sure we bring somebody here that's on the same page. But after they get through the ringer, then we want to have a group of people that's sort of a mixed bag of what's representative of our church, and that always includes women. And one thing I just want to say, I can't explain it, but I really appreciate the fact that women in general have an intuition that men don't have. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it is, but it is. And when Dana tells me, I got a red I have a red flag about this guy, in leadership. I used to go, why? And she couldn't explain it. Now I don't even ask why. It's like, okay, I'll keep my eyes out. And I just trust that she knows what she's talking about, and every time she's right. And so I think it's important. We've hired, since I've been here, we've hired people that have been mistakes, and we didn't, and in one case, we didn't listen to the women and their intuition, and we made a big mistake. And so I want to say right here and right now, women, I especially value women's intuition to read character. And again, they may not be able to explain why, but and I think that it's interesting because I think it says that God created Eve to help him. And to refuse any help from a woman is stupid. Okay, it just is. Because oftentimes they know better than we do. And we have a bunch of grandkids, and it's just funny how much more mature women or girls are than boys of similar age. So God designed women in a special way to be able to help men, and I believe, and obviously men help women too. But I just think we are different. It's obvious, and those differences are good and valuable. Yeah.
If I can just give you a quick example.
Yeah.
This Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
Being the host leader, one of our members came out and was just really upset about something.
Huh.
And I was there, and she was
Okay.
on the couch there, and I thought, well, okay, I need to go over there and try to comfort her. Well, from a guy's perspective, I'm thinking, what do I say? I mean, I'm thinking, I want to find out what happened,
Yeah.
the facts and stuff like that. Yeah. And
Be the detective.
Yeah.
but then Cindy, she was there, and she came over and sat down with her and was able to give her the comfort and what she needed, and just that really, and you just see that it really helped this our sister, and I was so grateful that Cindy was there,
Yeah.
because I wanted to solve what
Yeah.
it was.
That's
and
how
all
That's
she
good.
needed to
They
know.
want
Yeah.
to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
want to fit.
And she
Right.
did, and
Yeah.
she didn't. She just needs some comfort and just
Yeah.
be there at that moment.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh wow.
And so they were able to, and they were able to leave good.
Yes.
Everything was, that's great. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. No, but I think that's the beautiful thing, And again, even, we have wealthy people and not so wealthy people. We have all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds with high up positions and lower position. But I think the common denominator for all of us is Christ. And that we're one in Christ, and we're all unique, and we're all valuable. But I think our church does that pretty well. I don't think we have even though there is a hierarchy, it's a humble hierarchy. Because even, like for me, I don't see myself as the leader of the church. I've had people say to me before, you're the leader, and I go, no, I'm not. I go, Jesus is. And I don't even see myself, I'm nowhere close to being the leader of the church. I have a group of men, and then we have deacons, and then we're accountable to the whole congregation for everything we do and say. So I've got like 3 structures over me that I'm accountable to. And that just means more responsibility, And so to me, there's nothing to boast about at all. But again, the leader of our church is Jesus. And I hope everybody thinks that and sees that and knows that. And then we just all have different gifts that we use in serving him. He's our commander-in-chief, and then we're all under him. But I do have a responsibility as the lead pastor in a certain way, but I don't take that in a prideful way. I take that in it's humbling, and and there's a lot of responsibility there, which I honestly, in my flesh, I would rather pawn off on somebody else. So anyway, but I can't do that. So anyway, but it's good to have other men to share that with, and I love that. Okay, number 4. Men and women have been created by God to be equal. in their importance and personhood. And again, if you look at the Trinity, which is our model, you can't say the Father's better than the Spirit, or the Spirit's better than Jesus, or one's higher than the other. However, there is a hierarchical structure that has always existed in the Trinity. There's debate on that today because of the egalitarians. But if you read any of the footnotes, he had some really good footnotes, and sometimes, probably the book would be a lot longer because the footnotes, he's able to put the font smaller. But some of the footnotes are really good. And I listen to it on audio, so oftentimes he'll go off on the I'm reading and I'm going, where is he? Where'd he go? And what he's doing is the audible guy's reading the footnote. But there were a lot of good footnotes in this. And one of them about this equality thing was, if you look at the egalitarian scholars, which are the majority now, when they write about this, they don't have biblical arguments. They do eisegesis. Those of you who are in the deeper dive on Sunday, I talked about this, but I think it's a good time to talk about it here too, because this is one of the biggest mistakes people make. Again, I'm starting to write in Greek. Anyway, I'll explain it in a second. I'll do my best to get it in English. There we go. Eisegesis, so this prefix in Greek means into. And then exegesis is out of. So again, we have a sign exit. If the building's starting to fall down or there's an earthquake or something, we know where the exits are, where to go out. So that X in both Latin and Greek means to go out or out of. And so what complementarians are doing is we're looking at the text. We read the Bible and we're taking out what's there. Okay, that's exegesis. Or exegetical preaching, or expository preaching, the EX, means to take out of the text what's there. Eisegesis is reading into the text something that you want to be there. Okay, so what egalitarian scholarship has done, and I've given this example before, but I'll give it again, is I was in a room of about 40 people at a church in Connecticut, and it was a church like Marin Covenant over here, so same denomination. Well, Marin Covenant is in a denomination that's egalitarian. Okay, they have women pastors, and that comes down from the seminary. Which is North Park in the Chicago area. That's their flagship seminary. So we were in a church that we're actually, Jonathan Edwards spoke at that church. It was in Woodstock, not Woodstock where the hippies were, but Woodstock, Connecticut. And I thought it'd be cool to pastor at a church where Jonathan Edwards spoke, so I'm thinking of that, and I'm going, revival could break out in the Northeast again, and this whole thing. So anyway, I go there, and I'm in this room, about 40 people, and in a doctor's house, large room, bigger than this, and there were two things they wanted me to do that I was really uncomfortable with, and I wanted to start with those things. And so one is they wanted me to baptize infants and do believers' baptism as well. And so I said, I just want you to know I can't do that. And the reason is I don't see any biblical evidence for infant baptism. And then I said, you don't have women pastors and elders right now, but you're saying you want to have that. And I just want you to say, if you call me, you'll never have that. And then I said, okay, I want to open the floor. There's 40 of you here. You're the leaders of this church. Can anybody here defend either of those two things biblically? And I sat there. And it was quiet like this. Two women started crying, and it ended up leading to some sort of, uncomfortableness after that. But the reality was, I knew right then and there, I wasted my time flying here. And when I got on the plane, it was pouring rain. It was sort of like a day like today. It was pouring rain. It was cold, and I just started crying because it was the third church in a row that I'd interviewed with that was basically was complementarian and went egalitarian. I'm going, am I ever going to find a church that believes what I believe? Because I can't be a poser. I can't go somewhere just because I need a job. I'd rather be homeless than teach something that goes against my biblical convictions. And thank God this church exists, okay? In a place where the majority of the churches are just like that. And again, they cannot defend their positions biblically. They can't do it. And so Grudem talks about that in some of the footnotes here, is that even Gordon Fee, who's a great scholar, I mean, the guy's, he's considered one of the best New Testament scholars, but even he gives, basically makes an argument for egalitarianism based on a translation of a word of how we use it today, but not how they used it back then. And that's eisegesis. So even evangelical people that love the Lord, they haven't lost their salvation, but many of them are guilty of eisegesis. And what we're all about here at Marin Bible is exegesis. What does the Bible say? And that's what we're going to believe. That's what we're going to do. It doesn't matter what culture could do whatever they want. And the only thing that's going to change people's thinking to biblical thinking is the work of the Holy Spirit, just like for us, All right, any comments on that or questions about that? But I just want you to know, this is a huge issue. Okay, I think I have a good friend who's a pastor, and we both think this, and I think there's many others that think this as well, that the worst thing that ever happened to the American church is women pastors. It's the worst thing that ever happened in the American church. Because now, what that's led to is transgender pastors, homosexual pastors, lesbian pastors. Who knows, we'll probably have animals being pastors before long. I mean, I don't know where it's going. I don't know where you go from here. But again, totally against God's design. And if your starting point, if your foundation is against God's design, everything is going to fall apart. So, I've said it before, if I ever go egalitarian, give me an opportunity to repent, and if I don't, stone me, okay? All right.
How do the churches justify having women pastors?
Cultural. They use cultural examples. They don't use biblical. They can't. There's no biblical examples to use. Yeah, it's just culture. But again, because most churches teach topically, they're able to avoid all the passages that deal with whatever they want to avoid. They don't talk about hell. Somebody was telling me, somebody who's new to our church said, this is my new church because you've talked about hell 4 weeks in a row. Said the church I was in for 20 years never mentioned hell. And when I read the Bible, I see hell everywhere. God is a God of wrath. And that's what makes the gospel so wonderful, is Jesus took that wrath upon himself. But to not talk about that, people don't see, then they don't see why do I need Jesus? I'm a good person. Right. And God's not going to, I'm just going to die and that's it anyway. So what big deal is it? What's the big deal? Yeah. So it really minimizes the reality of our need for a relationship with Christ and our need to repent. But again, churches don't talk about repentance. I guarantee you, I absolutely guarantee, I would be shocked if Marin Covenant talks about repentance. You were there. I mean, and again, I'm saying, I know this is on video, I don't care. I'd be happy to debate the pastors from over there anytime, any place. Or any other church in this area. If you're not talking about repentance and sin and hell and judgment, you are not talking about the gospel. And the gospel is the most important thing. So, I'm hardcore on this. And I think it's a place where you need to be hardcore because lives are at stake. Who cares if I'm Joel Osteen and I'm making millions of dollars and all the people that are listening to me are going to hell? Yeah. He's going to stand before God one day. And I do not want to be in his shoes. No. Okay? I barely even want to be in my shoes. Okay? But the reality is the only reason I could be in my shoes is because the shoes are the righteousness of Christ. And I stand before the righteous God. But at the same time, I'm responsible to preach what Jesus preached, what Paul preached. And that's repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. What do you need to repent from? Your own sin. And, I always tell people that, what are we being saved from? We're being saved from Jesus himself. He's either going to be our judge one day, or he's our Savior and Lord. And there's no middle ground. There's nothing in between. He's either going to judge you for your sin or he saved you from your sin and he took the punishment upon himself. That's good news. But again, if everybody's okay, I'm okay, you're okay, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter what you do, well, then the gospel really doesn't matter. So, all right. Number 5. In what ways are men and women equal according to Grudem? So that's on pages 582 to 585.
They're made equally in God's image.
Mm-hmm.
Men and women reflect God's character in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
We're equally important and valuable to God.
Yep.
And equal in worth for all eternity.
Okay.
That's what I found.
Good. I think there were 2 more too. Anybody else have?
So go ahead, Shirley. I put both depend on each other and both are worthy of honor. Woman was made for man, so now is born of a woman.
Okay. Good. Good. Thanks. Yeah. Again, there's a lot. There's, these are all right. Yeah. Yeah. Equal to receiving the empowering of the Holy Spirit, right?
I love the way the Lord worked that. Woman came from man, but guess what? From then on, all men came from women. I just love that balance there. The
Yeah.
interdependence.
Yeah.
It's clever.
It is. It is. No, God's brilliant.
He is.
He really, truly is brilliant. Yeah. And even the church, I think the church is, warts and all, because there's no perfect church, because once you or I join it, it's already, got troubles. But the reality is, church done right can be a beautiful thing too. I mean, I think our church is a beautiful thing. Even I was at life group on Wednesday, and a few of you were in the same life group, and I was just thinking, none of us would know each other if it wasn't for Christ. And we all benefit from each other. We are so different, we probably wouldn't choose to hang out together just because of our differences. But in Christ, you have that unity and the diversity. And it's a beautiful thing of how that can work, because He's the one that's driving your decision making, and you're working together to do it His way. And sometimes you got to give up some stuff. But it's a beautiful thing. It really is. Yeah.
He also mentions that we're, which illustrates this, we're all baptized into Christ with no distinction.
Yeah.
We're all members of His body with no distinction.
Yeah.
No, there's not Jew or Greek, slave or free, male or female.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, and again, we equally reflect the equality in the persons of the Trinity. And again, I love the fact that within the Trinity, I can never fathom Jesus saying, "Why do I have to go?" Holy Spirit, why can't you don't see any argument. You don't see. It's just the 3 persons exist to glorify another one of the persons in the Trinity always, and I think it's always been that way. It's just a perfect relationship, because in a perfect relationship, there's no fighting, there's no division, there's no animosity, but there are distinct roles, and I think we have such good biblical evidence for the roles of the man and the woman in a marriage, in the church. It's very clear. What makes it unclear is the distortion of bringing cultural values into eisegesis, reading into the text what's not there. Okay, good. Number 6, which aspect of this doctrine, according to Grudem, sets Christianity apart from almost all religions, societies, and cultures? And so we saw that on page 585. I'll read it to you because you may have not seen that. But on the last paragraph, second to the last paragraph before C, those last sentences there, this equality, so it's the equality of men and women. This equality is an amazing and wonderful element of the Christian faith and sets Christianity apart from almost all religions and societies and cultures. The true dignity of godly manhood and womanhood can be fully realized only in obedience to God's redeeming wisdom as found in Scripture. So, and that's true. It's interesting. Like I was just thinking of this morning. I was thinking, I wonder if the Pope will ever be a woman. Yeah, every Pope's been a man. I was thinking of language. I'm trying to learn as much Portuguese as I can because I'm going to Brazil and Argentina in March for 3 weeks. I'll be doing some marriage seminars. I'll be preaching. I'll be teaching at a few different seminaries and churches on intentional discipleship in the local church. And so I want to learn as much Portuguese as I can. And so the other night I went to Claudia and Dan's, and Mendez and Cito were there. So I'm going to speak at Mendez's church. And so I don't know if you've met them, but real neat couple. But we were talking about this, that if you're transgender, how does that work in all the Romance languages? Because everything's feminine or masculine. And it's all based on whether you're a girl or a boy, or a man or a woman. Everything you say is feminine or masculine. It's that way in Greek. It's that way in Spanish. I mean, you name it. And so it's like, it's just common sense. It's God made you a man or a woman. And to go against that is to go against God's design. And it just doesn't work. Just doesn't work.
Confusion. And where does confusion come from? Satan.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking, if I was a transgender person and I'm learning language, how do you do that? And so you have to basically, you're going to have to change every single grammatical, syntactical rule in every language to be able to actually do this. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just craziness. It's absolute craziness. But hey, there you go. Satan's good at craziness. Okay. All right. Let's see. Number 7. Compare and contrast the differences in roles between the members of the Trinity and between men and women. So that was on page 586.
Father has the authority over his son, though the two are equal in deity.
Yeah.
In marriage, the husband has authority over the wife, though they are equal in personhood.
Yeah.
And they are equal in importance, but they have different roles.
Good. Yeah, and another interesting thing is he says the man is like the father and the woman's like the son.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Neat to see.
Yeah. So again, that's not a bad thing. To be like either the father or the son is good. And that's the way God designed it. And again, if you mix it up, it just doesn't work very well. Okay, Grudem argues what? Number 8. Which of those letters?
B.
Yeah, B, which is? Go ahead and read it, Gary.
Differences in roles between men and women were designed by God in the beginning.
Yeah, so not after the fall. That's what the egalitarians teach. But that's not what the Bible teaches. So again, they're doing eisegesis in their interpretation of Scripture. Okay, this might have been a new word for you, number 9.
Yes, it was.
Okay, primogenitor.
Oh, I use it all
Yeah.
Figures.
Yeah.
Right on.
Pass me that primogenitor.
Okay, Gary and Ron, you can. That's your and Charlie. Charlie's a songwriter too. The 3 of you can write a song about primogeniture. I'm sure it'll be a best-selling hit. Yeah. So, what is primogeniture?
Well, I looked it up,
Uh-huh.
and it said the state of being the firstborn
Mm-hmm.
or the eldest child of the same parents.
Yeah.
The law that the right of the eldest child, especially the eldest son, to inherit the entire estate of one or both parents.
Yeah.
So,
Good. Yeah, and in the chapter there under number 2A on page 587, he says that the creation of Adam first is consistent with the Old Testament pattern of primogeniture. The idea that the firstborn in any generation in a human family has leadership in the family for that generation. The right of primogeniture is assumed throughout the Old Testament text, even when at times, because of God's special purposes, the birthright is sold or otherwise transferred to a younger person. So there's several examples of that. Okay, number 10, true or false, Adam naming Eve indicates a leadership role on his part.
True.
Yeah, that would be true. And again, we see that in, children. I mean, there's probably weirdness now where children get to name their own name, but, Typically, the way it's been done historically throughout history, the parents have authority over the child and name the child.
Oh,
and
that's in question. You know.
I know. Now everything's, yeah.
Who's in charge?
Okay, number 11. Who is representative of the human race in their sin? Adam or Eve?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, see all these things. There's a lot of arguments against egalitarianism. Biblical arguments. And I want to tell you, the egalitarians don't have any arguments. They don't. The only way they argue is to misinterpret Scripture based on cultural principles. That's what they do. So like they'll use that Galatians passage for in Christ there's no Jew, there's no Greek, there's no slave, there's no free. But that's not talking about roles. That's talking about salvation. So they take it actually out of context, and that's their main verse. That's their main, you talk to any egalitarian, that's the passage they use. Well, they're taking it out of context. They're not interpreting it even in its own context. So they take a cultural principle and then they superimpose that on the text, and then they have to change the meaning of the text to be able to fit what modern culture is teaching. And as we're going, many of you are involved in the science class, deeper dive, it's the same thing. Why are there so many different views? Because people want to be accepted in the scientific community. So you eisegete the text, you take it out of its context, and you superimpose what culture says on the text. It's very simple. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out what's going on.
Right. And they
But-
want a grant,
Yeah,
so they need the money so that they come up
Right.
with some new idea.
right.
Yeah.
So,
That's what the unity ministers do.
yeah,
Is they still pull in the Bible, but just do exactly what you're saying. Just take a verse and take it completely out of context
Wow.
yeah,
and use it for their talks
Yeah.
every Sunday.
yeah. Yep. So it's no wonder, most people are very ignorant of what the gospel is and why they need Jesus in particular. Yeah, Charlie.
Should there be women presidents?
I don't, no,
Women CEOs?
no, no.
Too many women in politics.
No, there shouldn't. Again, that's a cultural thing. It's obviously accepted in culture, but it's not God's design.
Right.
And again, look at politics. Look at what a disaster politics are around the world. And a big reason, going outside of God's design.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't mean, you should have women involved, of course, but the primary leader needs to be the man.
Amen.
But again, these are mainly pagan leaders who they think they're God. And, that for most people, this seems ridiculous. Let's face it. Okay. The average person out there, if they heard us talking, they're like, man, these guys are a wacko. And the reality is, they're wacko. Okay? I'm telling you, if there's a God and He's revealed truth, they're the ones that are off. But we're considered to be evil and off. Again, Genesis, the very first command in Scripture is be fruitful and multiply. It's to have children. That's the first command. So I think that's a pretty important command.
Through all the ages.
Yeah, and so everybody's always held to that. But because of the idea of climate control and, there's a shortage on food, and most people think, I have family members that think that we're evil because we have so many kids. And a lot of people, we were talking with, both our daughters, and a lot of people look at them askewed when they're having more children, more than 2 or 3 children.
Really? Or more than 2.
And they think that's evil.
Really?
Yeah.
Evil to do that.
Oh, wow.
Don't you care about the planet? Don't you care about, there's going to be less food now for everybody because you're having kids?
It's reached so far in that young people now are getting, like women, they're having a hysterectomy, so they will not have children.
Yeah.
Guys are getting a vasectomy, they will not have.
Yeah.
I'm talking in their 20s.
Oh,
This is really a tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's happening, and they're going with the culture, the people they're with, they're encouraging this, and it's really sad. And even in this reading about India and
Yeah.
all the women that are missing in the world
Millions.
today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that in a footnote or did he deal with?
It was the
It
big.
was.
but
Where was
no,
that? I think we should read
580
that.
Was it? No, it wasn't before that. Page 583.
583, yeah.
Yeah, can you read that, Dana?
Oh, sure.
That footnote? Out loud?
A tragic example of male dominance was reported on the front page of USA Today, International Edition, September 6, 1984.
94, yeah.
Yeah, 1994. Okay, no girls allowed. Abortion for sex selection raises moral questions was the caption on a photo of a doctor performing an ultrasound on a pregnant woman in India. The cover story, Asians' Desire for Boys Leaves a Deadly Choice, reported that according to Dr. Datra Pai, a Bombay obstetrician, 99% of those found to be carrying female fetuses aborted their unborn children. The story explained that modern technology, the strong cultural desire for boys, and pressure to reduce population have joined forces in a deadly combination in India, China, and much of Asia to produce a booming business in sex selection. The practice of aborting female fetuses appears common, judging by emerging statistics that show lopsided sex ratios throughout Asia and into North Africa. Nor is the practice of sex selection limited to abortion. Female infanticide, the abandonment of baby girls, and the preferential feeding and health care of boys contribute greatly to the imbalanced ratios. The story goes on to quote Harvard professor Amartya Sen as saying that there are now more than 100 million women missing in the population of the world, including 44 million fewer women in China and 37 million fewer in India than should be alive, according to normal sex ratios at birth. This is a tragedy of unspeakable proportions. In addition to the harm of these lost lives, we must think of the destructive consequences in the lives of those women who survive. From their earliest age, they receive the message from their families and indeed from their whole society that boys are better than girls, and I wish you were a boy. The devastation to their own sense of self-worth must be immense. Yet all of this comes about as the result of a failure to realize that men and women, boys and girls, have equal value in God's sight and should have equal value in our sight as well. The first chapter of the Bible corrects this practice and corrects any lurking sense in our own hearts that boys are made more valuable than girls when it says that we are both created in God's image.
Yeah, so I think that was one of the footnotes. A lot of these footnotes are really good, and you might have missed that. But what's interesting about this too is with the movement of homosexuality, think of that. If you're in China or India, there's not as many women to draw from. And so you got this advent of homosexuality. And as a teenager, almost everybody has their hormones going and whatever. So it's going to increase the population of homosexuality. And a lot of, there's a lot of people I've read too that think the Antichrist is going to be a homosexual.
Really?
And again, you can't really prove it biblically, but just via statistics and the way things are going, that everything God designed is considered evil by the world.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
So a man and a woman in the homosexual, that's a selling point for them. You can, it can be all about you because you don't have a responsibility of children. And they're able to give tons of money to their political causes because they're not like us who are raising kids and paying for college. And, it costs a fortune to raise kids today.
Just to feed your kids too.
Yeah, just to feed them.
Right.
But again, it's being obedient to God's design. And but again, the world just attacks it at every point. Every point, yeah.
Yeah, just think about which way would the climate first people go? They would definitely support this population control method. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's reversal.
Yeah.
That's reversal from the very beginning of creation.
Yeah.
Man uses and rules and subdues creation, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm personally convinced that the vaccine mandates were driven by this.
Yeah. Population.
It's population control. And there's going to be more to come. I would just say to all of you, you need to, and anybody watching, you need to be very careful about what the medical profession is doing.
Compromised.
And again, this all flows from Satan's behind it. You got to remember, Satan's behind all this. And I just think you need to be very careful before you make decisions related to medical stuff. Yeah. But in my opinion, and I think there's good evidence for it, I think there's a lot of this depopulation behind the vaccines.
Well, they've spoken outright about it. It's
Yeah.
not hidden anymore.
Yeah. And we see more and more of this coming out, but it's still very suppressed.
Yeah.
And I just want you to be very careful as you make decisions.
And where's the outrage from the rest of the pro-abortion world about
Women, girls.
this,
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
sex selection?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I know.
Where's it?
Well, the Muslims get
Can't speak up.
a free pass on this.
Right.
You know, in the World Cup, for instance, the United States team was going to wear the rainbow flag on their jerseys.
Right.
And I think the women's team, I was watching a recent game, they didn't have it, but they usually do have the rainbow thing. There was there was no pushback at all.
Right.
Because it's a Muslim country, no pushback at all. I guarantee you, when the World Cup comes the next World Cup's going to be here. So in 4 years, it's going to be in North America. It's going to be the first time ever where 3 countries are hosting the World Cup: Canada, Mexico, and the United States. So it's going to be in North America, essentially. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I think there's going to be a good push to advertise for equality, and homosexuality is seen sort of like slavery. You know, that's the way they push it. That's the way they market it. It's anti-gay. So they're really going to make this a big deal. I guarantee it. It's going to be a big deal. And I don't doubt that the United States is going to wear the rainbow flag in their uniforms. But this is all from the pit of hell.
Yeah.
It just is. You know, there's no two ways about it. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you make a comment about that paragraph there? The serpent came to Eve first.
Where are we? Where are you?
Page 589.
Oh, okay.
There's the first 3 sentences there. I thought that was a brilliant.
Go ahead and read it. Tyron.
Okay. Satan, after he had sinned, was attempting to distort and undermine everything that God had planned and created as good. It is likely that Satan, in the form of a serpent, in approaching Eve first, was attempting to institute a role reversal by tempting Eve to take the leadership in disobeying God. This stands in contrast to the way God approached them. For when God spoke to them, he spoke to Adam first.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting.
I thought it was really interesting too.
Yeah.
Trying to get her to take leadership.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yes, that's interesting.
And the last sentence there, Paul brings this up, seems to have this role reversal in mind when he says, quote, Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor, end quote, 1 Timothy 2. Well, that's the same passage that talks about why men need to lead in the church. So that's why I take it as a principle. It's not a cultural thing, it's a principle. When you see something repeated from the Old Testament in the New Testament, and it's a command or it's a principle, that means we need to maintain it. And see, that's another reason why egalitarians have a problem. Because Paul's argument is based on the creation, on what happens in the first few chapters of Genesis. So thanks for bringing that up. And then again, he says in the last sentence there on page 580, this at least suggests that Satan was trying to undermine the pattern of male leadership that God had established in the marriage by going first to the woman.
So we see where it all began.
Yeah. And again, who's behind it? Satan. I mean, it's very clear. Okay, there's no mystery there. Okay, thinking critically, the thinking critically section, number 12, what is lost if we deny the understanding and practice of the equality of men and women?
Oh, man.
Yeah, everything. All is lost, yeah, pretty much. And again, we see that. We see it in our culture right now. It's chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's just craziness. And the only way that's going to correct it, so we need a revival. Okay, because you can establish laws and everything, but you don't change the heart. And it's the heart that is driving. It's what people really want that's driving them, and people want sin. And they want to be autonomous. They want to do their own thing. So unless people are saved, there's no hope.
Yeah.
So it just means we need to evangelize more, disciple more, teach more, I don't know. Basically what we're doing, keep doing it, and pray that God will bring about reformation in the church and revival in the culture. Churches need to be reformed. And what I mean by that is too many churches are egalitarian. Mm-hmm. Too many churches think it's okay to be a homosexual. Too many churches are not talking about repentance. Yeah. So they're basically promoting sin in a place that's supposed to be holy and set apart.
Because what does he say? Be holy.
Yeah.
So we're to be set apart. We're to come out of the world. We're
Right.
to be set apart unto God.
Yeah.
Instead, we're taking on all the culture,
Right.
all the things into the church, which is
Yeah.
a horrible thing.
Yep.
God would condemn such a thing. And I thought we lose out on reflecting God's character.
Yeah.
When we, do it our way. We miss out at his design and what he has planned for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then one, male or female, they're trying to usurp the other's authority constantly. It's going back and forth. And we miss glorifying God. We're not showing God off.
Right.
Everything's diminished, and it's huge what's going on. It just is sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have no savior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you don't need
We
one
are
either.
our
Yeah.
own savior
Right.
if
Right.
we're doing that.
Yeah.
We can do it.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the motive, that they want to throw God out and determine their own satisfaction or future, whatever, they're sabotaging themselves because at best, if you mess up this idea of how men and women are supposed to relate together, based on who they think they are, if you mess that up, the best they can hope for is weak and unfulfilling relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Or broken relationships. That's the best they can think
Right.
of.
Yeah.
The worst is abusive relationships.
Yeah.
So it's like they're sabotaging their own
Right.
potential for meaningful, worthwhile relationships, which is what God intended at the beginning. Right.
Yeah.
They could have.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's huge
And a good
benefits.
example is Hollywood marriages.
Oh.
How many people have been married 5, 6, 7, 8 times? And again, it's just one misery after another because their foundation is all wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's really sad. It's really sad. So a lot of them like Doris Day just resorted to just having dogs.
Right.
Yeah.
She had so many bad marriages.
Yeah.
She just said, well, my dogs are always loyal. So she just devoted herself to saving dogs.
Look at all of society today. The dogs are more important.
I know. Well, yeah, Marin County.
They give up on people and figuring that out, so we just go for the dog.
I think those are more like corporate mergers than
Yeah.
True.
Well, it was really interesting what he says here at one point where he goes,
Where are you?
I'm on page 594, because you see this a lot in society, and I think young men get this signal to do this from society.
Mm-hmm.
In a distortion of the Bible, the husband becomes so considerate of his wife
Right.
that he allows her to make all the decisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even agrees when she urges him to do wrong.
Right.
Often, such a husband is increasingly absent from the home and occupies his time with other concerns. You have this phrase, happy wife, happy life, which is kind of a surrender
Right.
along these lines. And this whole idea of authority, it's very convenient if you're saddled with authority to just not do it.
Yeah.
You've just avoided a major obligation
Right.
of life. And
Yeah.
I think that's tempting, especially when you're getting all these cultural social signals to do that.
Right. And I think that's what's happened is the role reversals have been so severe that they have taken over.
Yeah.
You know, we have women taking the role of men and men taking the role of women. That's our culture right now. Men are totally behaving like women. They have the women's role, and women have taken the man's
even
role.
in the church, men have not.
Oh, yeah,
stepped up to the
absolutely.
plate. They're not the spiritual
Oh, yeah.
leaders, and therefore the woman stepped up to the plate.
Right.
You know, so you see how that happened and came about.
Yeah.
Because of the lack of male leadership, you know, and males in the church.
Yeah.
And in society, in homes, you know, like
Yeah.
especially like black families, and they don't have a dad in the home, and see what's happened.
Yeah. Yeah, in black culture around the world, even in Africa and Latin American culture, the pastors I coach, their biggest problem is finding male leaders in their churches. They have plenty of women leaders. They are hard pressed to find one guy that's mature. I had a black pastor I was dealing with here in Marin, and his best guy, they have deacons, they don't have elders. His best guy, we were meeting in the morning, and he said, he said, "Is there anything I could pray for you?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, the chairman of my board got a DUI last night. And it was either his second or his third DUI, so he was in jail. That's his best guy. And it's really sad. And, I even think of our church, it's like, you don't have that many guys that are just solid. I mean, they know theology, they love their wives, they're a good influence in the community. It's hard to find elders. And that's one of the reasons why we just said we're changing it to plurality, because we may not be able to find 6 guys that fit the character and the leadership. But that's sad, but it's reality, and we're trying to change that. We're trying to do what we can by men discipling men and investing in that. We hope to change the tide. But the reality is most men in our church behave more like women, and most women behave more like men. And that's because that's what the culture is doing. But again, all that shows me is all the more why we need to be in the Word and do what the Word says. And
that transformation can take
absolutely.
place, and the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
can work in our lives.
Yeah.
And renew it.
But it's caused a crisis. And so I think you asked the question about, can a woman be president and stuff? And biblically, no. And again, that gets back to the church. So a lot of people just say, well, we have to have elders, so we're going to have... I had a guy here, I'm not going to tell you what church, but one of the churches here that you would all be familiar with, met with me, and he said, I don't have a single guy that's qualified to be an elder, but I have some women. And I said,
Right off the bat,
okay, what are you talking about? Women can't be elders, But he went to Gordon Conwell Seminary, which is a good seminary, but they're egalitarian. And so he just said, well, we're going to have... Well, that church has fallen apart. It's one of the many churches that have fallen apart here in Marin. And he compromised. I told him, I said, don't do it. Don't do it. Just hold out. If you're the only guy, you're the only guy. And just pray and start meeting with some guy, the best guy you can think of, start investing in him, but do not put a woman in leadership. And he did, and the church fell apart.
How high would you do that? Like using government, again,
Right.
as an example, like, cabinet level positions, that's a lot of authority, but you're not at the top. At what level could a woman rise to, in your view?
Well, again, because the Bible specifies who's the leader in the home and who the leader in the church is. It doesn't really specify business. But it used to be that CEOs, and let me give you an example of how this works. With women, they've done all kinds of studies on this. They found that for women, it's very difficult to fire somebody. Now again, there's some women that are ruthless, like some men are ruthless as well. But it's rare because women have been given, their nature is to be nurturing. So like a guy could fire his son. I've known guys that have worked, they started a company and they had one of their sons in their business, and the guy's a lazy bum or whatever, and he's like, I gotta fire my son. The guy can do that. For a woman, it's a lot harder to do that. And so the person may not be doing a job, but you come in the board meeting and this person's not cutting it. And if it was anyone else, they'd probably fire him. But because he has a wife and a bunch of kids and they're struggling to make the mortgage and everything, the woman might be a little bit more lenient and saying, let's give him more time. The guy, it's the bottom line. We are not making budget. It's this person is not cutting it as a worker, and the guy can make that decision.
You're fired.
Yeah, it's no problem. I do that. I have to do that. I have to tell people, you know what? And I have people leave the church over it. But it's like, you're not cutting it. And, unless you do ABC, you've already been warned several times. I have no problem firing somebody. But for a woman, it's a lot more difficult. Now, I'm not saying that's always the case, but that's one example of where the guy is designed to be the hunter, to be the provider, to be the guy who's on the front lines. I hope that any guy would jump in front of his wife if somebody's trying to attack his wife. There's just something in us, the way God designed us, to be the protector, to be the provider, and to be the guy that's willing to take the hard stuff to protect his wife. And I think if you don't have that at the top of any organization, you're in trouble. You just are. So again, I think you have to do things God's way everywhere. But again, it's hard to do. It's hard to do that in a pagan society. We're primarily a pagan society now, so it's like to impose God's ways on a bunch of pagans isn't going to be. It's not going to work. But that's why we need godly men that are good businessmen to model that in their business. A good example of that is Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Or Hobby Lobby. Or In-N-Out Burger. They're run biblically.
Yeah.
And they're exceptional. And there's a lot of businesses that are not exceptional. They may make a lot of money, but eventually they're going to fall. Google's going to fall. Twitter's got anything that's not run biblically is going to fall eventually. They're not going to last. Their days are numbered. And the only reason the Christian organizations fall is because of the laws that are the wicked laws that are established to quell that. Like I say this all the time. I will not be surprised if we lose our building in the next 10 years because of what I teach. And I'm outspoken on it. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm fined and I go to jail. I'm preparing for that. I don't want that to happen, but I'm not going to compromise on that. I can give a rip if whatever, people could say whatever they want. If it contradicts the Bible, I'm going with the Bible. I got to stand before God one day. So, all kinds of people, pastors around me are capitulating. They're a bunch of wimps.
Well, the thing is, when you know it's the truth and it's in your heart, it's like, this. It's like, that's what you do. That's what you stand for. There's no choice. There's no decision. Mm-hmm. That is how it is. This is the truth that God has given me, and I'll go down with it or I'll rise with it. Either way it goes. Yeah. You can't do other than that when you know the truth.
And it really comes down to who people worship. If you worship Jesus, none of these things are issues if you worship Jesus. Most pastors honestly worship adulation for themselves, for their organization, for their church, for their name. I guarantee you that, Joel Osteen. I'd be happy to meet with Joel Osteen, but just knowing what he says, because I can attack him on what he says because it's public, and what he says is really all about him. So he worships himself. So here's an idolater in the pulpit. But a lot of other pastors are more subtle. They teach the word a little bit more. They're still doing eisegesis, but they can get away with it because people are at least opening their Bible. I don't know. But the reality is, I think a lot of churches they need money. They need butts in the seats and money in the bank. And so they don't want to rock anybody's world. And they want to be liked. They don't want to offend anybody. Well, all that tells me is that you worship yourself. You're not worshiping Jesus. If our church folds one day because of the truth, so be it. But I'm not gonna capitulate to what people want to hear. So these are challenging times. They're tough times. But it's clear. It's not like I'm not confused about any of this stuff. You know, they're confused about it. I'm not confused about it. It's very clear. And I'm going with the word. So yeah, if I had two conservatives that were running for office and one's a man and one's a woman, I'm going to vote for the man.
Yeah.
If it's if it's the lesser of two evils, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with the lesser of two evils, even if it's a woman. Again, just because if there's a woman that's against abortion that's running, and somebody's for abortion that's a man, I'm going to vote for the woman that's, again, it's not ideal. It's not necessarily biblical, but I'd rather have less people being killed than more people being killed because of that. So it's just, you're sort of voting for a lesser of two evils at that point.
Well, and Israel was under a theocracy, so
yeah.
We're different.
Right.
It's very different in our society and government running. So.
Right. Yeah.
David.
Yeah.
We thank God for your stance, and I appreciate it. Appreciate your bravery, your courage. And isn't the mess we're in societally go back to men not taking the responsibility?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Women were unfulfilled and unhappy
So they
in the
stepped up
depths
to the
of their
plate.
being,
Right.
and decided to go the way that they thought was going to make a difference. But what's interesting to me is I think there's a tremendous underlying insecurity about, or in sense of inferiority about, for instance, all the movies that try to tell us, yeah, women can kick butts too.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that message. Okay,
Right.
so what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets so old, but I feel like that's a symptom.
Yeah.
It's the message. Yes, we can do this. Okay,
Right.
well, if you can, just do it. But it's like they're still trying to convince themselves.
Right.
And I'm not sure if I'm expressing this very clearly, but I feel like it goes back to they're trying to convince themselves they can play the man's role, but they can't.
Right.
But they're still trying to convince themselves that they can.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's never going
And
to
they're
work.
worn out and they're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
because they're not fulfilling
Yeah.
the proper role.
Yeah, and that because men hadn't fulfilled theirs.
Yeah.
And
Because they'll
Right.
think, oh, you're not going to do it, then I'll go.
Yeah,
Somebody's got to do
somebody's
it.
gotta
So
do
I'm
it.
going to go. Yeah.
Dana, can you shut the door so
Yeah.
we drown out the vacuum there? Because it's still on video.
Yeah, years ago, I was
Thanks.
having my hair done, and there was a gal talking to whoever was doing her hair. He said, "You quit your job." She had a real high-profile job. She said, "I did." She said, "It was meaningless. What I want out of life is a husband and children and a family
Yeah.
and closer to my Maker." She said, "I gave it all up."
Yeah. Yeah.
And look at all the women today who will say that, oh, I waited to get my job and this, but I wish I had a family. I would give all of that up to be
Yeah.
married
Yeah.
and have a family.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what God put in their hearts to begin with.
Yeah. No, again, when you go again, the point is over and over again. You do things God's way, it works. You don't do things you go against God's way, it doesn't work. And it's obvious, it's clear. It is a mess right now. I mean, I debated on whether or not to subscribe to a newspaper this year. So I got a bunch of newspapers at the end of the year and read them on my Kindle. It was all bad news. The whole thing's bad news. And I'm going, this is absolutely miserable. I go, you know what? I'm just going to stay with the Bible. I'm just kidding. It's like it's all bad. And again, the reason for everything, every article I read, it's because of sin. Every single one. It's all because we have not done things God's way. And again, the only answer is Jesus. The only thing is people have to know Jesus, and He's the one who changes people. And so we're doing the right thing, but it's challenging, it's hard, but ultimately we have to stand before God one day and give account of our lives, and so I want to do it His way. But thanks for the kind words, Gary. But again, I'm the last. I don't like suffering. I don't like not being liked too. But the reality is, I just know what's at stake. And I see too many pastors compromising. It's very troubling to me. People that you think
And you see the results of the compromise.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, it's a no-brainer. I have to do what God says to do.
Yeah.
That's it. He has the last say in everything.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of view it this way. It's like we're on this, our church is like a ship that's floating on the water. And every time you compromise, it's like putting a hole in the ship. And it starts sinking. And the only way to stop it from sinking is you either repair the holes or you don't get holes in the first place. And I think too many churches are like ships that they compromise on a galley. That's one hole. They compromise on, they're not teaching Jesus is the only way anymore. Oh, there's many ways. There's many roads. That's another hole. Critical race theory, that's another hole. You know, there's all these churches around us that once had no holes, and now they got plenty of holes, and they're sinking. And nobody's bailing out the water. And so for me, my view is one of my biggest roles is making sure that we get no holes in the ship.
Yeah.
And that we keep moving forward to where God's taking us. So,
Good picture.
all right, well, let me stop with that. And let me pray for us, and then we'll sing our songs. So let's pray. Father, I just want to thank you for each person here. And Lord, we are all guilty of not doing things your way in this area. As men, some of us are not natural leaders. And so sometimes we're too passive when we need to be take a firmer stand and take more of a leadership role in our homes and in the church. Lord, for women, sometimes they get frustrated with their men because they're not leading spiritually, so they take over. And it's a right motivation. It's wanting to do things your way, but sometimes they need to be more humble in that role. Lord, we all tend to err in different ways. And Lord, as we study the scriptures, it's very clear what our roles are. But it's a matter of then doing that and making that work in our relationships and doing it your way. Lord, our culture is so off base here, we don't even know where to begin. So we need wisdom. We need help. We need guidance. We want to be loving, but also not compromise on the truth. So help us to do that. And I pray as a church we would model all of this well. That our marriages would be the way you designed them. Those of us who lead, whether elders or deacons, Lord, that we would lead and serve in a way that's honoring and pleasing and orderly, and the way you want us to do it. Jesus, we truly pray that you would be the chief commander of everything we do, wherever we go. And Lord, I just thank you for the differences and yet the equality of men and women. Those of us who are men are so grateful for the women in our lives, and those of us who are women are so grateful for the men. We thank you that you've made us different and yet valuable and equal. And so, Lord, I pray that we would model these roles in such a way that our church would be attractive to people around us whose lives are falling apart and broken, and that we could mend those lives and bring healing to them, and that when they do things your way, they would see that, wow, this works. Wow, this is God's design. Wow, this is great. And Lord, that we would make a difference here in Marin and beyond for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.